Hello, my name is Xonevant, and today we're going to be continuing my mini-series on how I create the daily dose. We're going to be taking a behind-the-scenes look at Sony Vegas. Let's get right into it right here on episode 50. All right, guys, so over the last couple of days, we have went through my capturing process through the Elgato Game Capture HD. We've went through commentary with Audacity. We've went through After Effects with the graphics. Now it's time to tie everything into the final edit, right? And we're going to be doing that in Sony Vegas. Let's go ahead and open up Sony Vegas. And right off the bat, if you've never used an editing program before, you're not familiar with Sony Vegas, obviously this is going to look a bit crazy to you, right? There's a lot of stuff going on here, but I'm going to try to break it down to you as best I can. It's very similar to After Effects, right? When we first opened that program, it can be a little bit mind-numbing as well. There's a lot of windows going on, a lot of panels, and this is no different, but hopefully after I explain everything to you, it'll make more sense. So right off the bat, before we get into all the panels and what they do, we want to make sure that our preferences are set up that way, every single time we come into Sony Vegas, we can make sure that it's giving us what we want right out of our production. So the first thing that we want to do is head over here to File and scroll down to Properties. You can see that I have a template saved out already. It's called YouTube Videos. If you click right here, you can see you have a bunch of different presets that you can have in here. Now, obviously, you can customize those templates as well. And I would urge you, if you're making YouTube videos, or really if you're doing any kind of production project at all, to make sure that you're customizing your template. At the end of the day, you want your project to do what you want it to do. And a lot of times with these presets, especially if you do a lot of different projects, like I do YouTube videos and I also do commercial projects for businesses, commercials and stuff like that, each project is different, right? So having that customized template that can fit the need that you are looking for that particular project is exactly the way that you want to go. So let's talk a bit about how to customize a template. The first thing you want to do is pick a template that is closest to your final product, right? The final end result of the product that you're looking for. Most of the time on YouTube, it's either 720 HD or 1080p quality, right? That's the two outputs that you need. I mean, if you're doing gaming content or vlogging or anything like that, and you're really serious about gaining an audience on YouTube, anything less than HD quality is really not the road that you're looking for. You really don't want to go down that path, right? Now, if you're just doing YouTube for fun or whatever, kicks and giggles, then any quality is fine. But if you're really looking to gain an audience, you really have to be in that HD space. So you can see right here that we have a lot of presets. We've got the HDV presets, we have the HD presets, which is the one that I would recommend. You've got your 1080i, your 1080p, your 720. So you just want to pick the one that's closest to your final project goals. Now, I used to pick 720 because that's how I uploaded, but you guys know that recently I have changed over to 1080p. I've done some upgrades to my PC, and now my PC can render those videos fast enough to be able to get those videos up on time. So 1080p is the way that I go. So I just basically pick any HD footage down here with a 1080. You see how we have the 1080 right here, and then I just customize it after I've selected one. Now, I'm not going to be picking one here just because it'll change my template, but I will show you that once you pull it up, right, it's going to have a bunch of generic default stuff up here. And you just want to go through and make sure that everything is the way that you want it to be. So you can see right here, I have 1920 by 1080. Obviously, if you're doing 720 videos, it's going to say 1280 by 720. You've got your non-progressive scan. You've got your 1 pixel square aspect ratio. Your output rotation, don't ever worry about that. You can just leave that at 0. And then my frames per second is now 60. Now, this used to say 30 for me, but obviously, YouTube has upgraded their players now so that they can actually run 60 frames a second. So if your final output file is running at 60 frames a second, then when you upload it, they'll be able to replay it at 60 frames a second. So you want to make sure that you're set up for that if that's something that you want to do for YouTube. Stereoscopic 3D mode, you can just leave that off. Pixel format, 8-bit. Full resolution rendering quality, make sure that's at best. If your computer can handle it, obviously, make sure it's at best. Motion blur type, Gaussian. Deinterlace method, just do blend fields. And what you can do is you can actually apply these settings to every project that you have after this one. And then all you have to do is just come down here and tick this box right here. It says start all new projects with these settings. You want to click apply and then click OK. And that way, the next time when you open up Sony Vegas and you're working with a new project, you know, it's going to already have these settings applied to it, right? And obviously, if it's not the settings you're looking for, you can come right back up here, click on your drop-down menu, select another preset or something that you've already customized, right? And you can obviously name those to whatever you want them to be. And once you have those settings applied, you can just click on the little disc right here and it saves that template out for you forever. And there's a couple of other things we can do here as well, like with your audio, you can also mess with these settings some. Remember that when we did our commentary in Audacity, we had the sample rate set to 48,000. And obviously you just want to make sure that that matches. Now, if you took it up to 192,000, you can also select that as well. But mine was at 48,000, so I just leave that at 48,000. The bit depth is at 24. And the resample and stretch quality, I want to leave that at best. And let's talk a little bit about this particular folder right here for a second. So it is possible to do commentaries using Sony Vegas. Now, this is what I used to do when I first started doing YouTube videos, right? This is how I record all of my work. But once I found out about Audacity, obviously I switched over to that. But let's just say, for instance, that you did a 6-minute commentary in Vegas and, you know, it was in your timeline down here and all of a sudden you were like, I don't really want that commentary. I want to scratch that commentary, and you delete it. And then you do another 6-minute long commentary. You don't like that one either, right? And you know, back and forth over months and months and months, well, you can see what's happening here, right? Those files that you are quote unquote deleting from your timeline right here are actually being stored in a folder somewhere on your hard drive. Typically it's inside of your actual Sony Vegas folder, right? But what you can do is you can actually create your own folder, which I call right here G Commentaries. And you know, you just browse and set it up that way. And what'll happen is every time those temp files go into a folder, it'll go to this specific folder. And then periodically, what you can do is go in there and just delete all those temp files, which is going to save you on your hard drive space, especially if you're pressed for hard drive space, right? Now, in terms of the ruler, summary, and audio CD, I really haven't found a use for those yet. I'm thinking that has to do something with, you know, if you're doing like an actual soundtrack or a CD, that might help you a bit there because you can give a title and artist and all that kind of stuff. But for what we're doing for the, you know, the Daily Dose and for my particular YouTube videos, and probably most of you guys' YouTube videos, really not relevant. So just make sure you apply all those settings, hit OK, and that way the next time you fire up Sony Vegas, you're ready to go. All right, guys, so now that we got all the preferences out of the way, let's take a look at what's actually happening here, okay? So we have a little box over here, and this is our main master bus box, right? And what this is our master volume control. This is the last thing I look at just to make sure that I'm not clipping and that my audio is not too high right before I do my final renders. Obviously, you can mess with some of the volume down here in your timeline as well, but this is kind of like, this particular box is kind of a culmination of all the sound that you have coming through all your individual timelines. So you just got to make sure that you're not clipping or anything out here. Make sure that it's in a good, you know, nice little area in terms of the output of the volume just before you make your final render. And we'll get into this a bit later on before we make our final render, guys. I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. This particular panel right here, this is your preview window. And this allows us, you know, just a visual representation of where we are in our timeline. So if I come down here to my timeline and I click anywhere, you can see that you are able to view exactly what's happening on screen. You can also hit play and actually go through your timeline in real time, and it'll actually play the video, you know, alongside of where you are on the timeline. This is great for making sure that your cuts are correct, that your cuts are precise, and things of that nature. Now over here we have our source panel or our source window. This is all the files that I currently have in my timelines down here. Let me drag this up a little bit for you guys so maybe you can see a little bit more of the timelines here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 files, and there are actually 6 files being worked inside of my timelines right now. Now, a lot of times when I'm working with this many source files, and like I said, with the Daily Dose, there's usually not a lot, but when I'm doing Let's Plays and stuff like that, there's a ton of files inside of here. A really cool trick is if you come to any one of your clips, it can be anything, right? We'll come down here and pick some music, and I hit right click, and then I come up here to select in project media list. It'll actually tell me exactly which clip I'm referencing, you know, the one that's actually highlighted, and it'll tell me where it is inside of my source panel. And this is really good for me, right? Because I do a lot of graphics and things of that nature, and I'm constantly replacing graphics with new graphics, right? Like I might have, let's play episode 20, of a, particular kind of game, and then I want to go up to 21 or 22 or 23. And this lets me replace really easily because I can tell which one is the last one that I was working on. And then of course down here we have our timeline, and this is kind of separated into two distinct parts. You have your left part and your right part. This is the actual timeline. This is where you're making all your edits and your cuts. And over here is kind of a mini property panel for the particular timeline that you're on. You can see right here that this says VD. That stands for video display. We talked about that when we went through After Effects. So this lets me know that anything I put inside of this timeline has to be, is basically my graphics, okay? And then I have my game video, my game audio, my commentary, the BG audio, which is the background audio, which you're probably listening to right now as you're, listening to this commentary. And that keeps it all honest. That lets me know exactly where I should be putting things at all times. And remember, it's just like we talked about at the beginning of this whole mini-series. It's about workflow. It's about making sure that you can get something done as fast as possible, right? So having everything labeled works for me really well. All you have to do is just double click any of these specific fields, type in whatever you want it to be, and then just click away. Okay, or you can hit enter. You can do that for all of your property timeline menus here. And that, like I said, that just really helps to streamline what you're working on. Now, another reason why you would want to label everything is because you can apply effects to each individual timeline. So like I know right now that my audio commentary is the same every time. Like we talked about earlier, I record at 70 in terms of my volume input. My microphone is always the same distance away from my mouth, etc., etc. So I know right now that my commentary, my audio output needs to be about 3 dB every single time, because I record the same way every single time. So knowing that my commentary will go on this timeline, as soon as I drop my commentary inside of this timeline, my audio is automatically perfect. I don't really have to mess with it at all because I know that it's always going to be at 3 dB. And I'll give you another example of it too. Like if I come up here and I click on this particular switch right here, my track effects switch, you can see that I've applied a couple of effects to this particular timeline. This is my graphics timeline, my video display. I have color curves, sharpen, and unsharp mask. And because the graphics are the same, right? I'm not doing anything different to the graphics when I render them out in After Effects. They're coming out the same way every single time. I know that when I drop them into this particular timeline with these effects, they're gonna look exactly the way that I want them to look. In other words, I don't have to go in there, every single day and reapply these effects every single day. Once I have them right, we're creating basically a template, just like we did in After Effects. We're just doing it in Sony Vegas. And all I have to do is just replace the clip, replace the graphics, and these all apply. And it just makes things a ton quicker than having to go through there and just, individually do each clip, because that takes a very long time. We'll go ahead and X out of that, and you can see right here that with my background audio, now this is a bit unique because when you're dealing with audio, especially when it's coming from tracks, everything is recorded at different levels. So you can't really have that same, like right here, I know my commentary is a +3 every time. That's because I'm controlling the input of how I'm recording, right? But when you're dealing with artists and labels and stuff like that, and engineers and production managers and stuff, they all tend to, mix and master tracks based on what they're hearing, right? So you have all these different, tracks coming out loud and soft and things of that nature. So I always start mine out at a -18, and then I will come in here and make manual adjustments based on the listening experience I have with my commentary. So you can see right here that this one is down like -3. So really this is about like a, -21, if you will. And I can control that by just grabbing that little line and going up and down, right? Put that back to where it was. And it doesn't have to be perfect. About -3.2 is fine. You can see right here, we take a huge dip. We go down -15. So we're at -18 already, and then we go down 15 more. You see what I mean? And that's just because that track is super loud. So you just kind of have to play that stuff by ear. But you will, especially if you're doing background audio, you will have to adjust that a bit more than just, like your standard commentary. All right, so now that we kind of have an overview of what's going on in Sony Vegas, let's go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up a little bit more. Let's come in here. We're gonna click on this particular icon right here. It's to the right of the lightning bolt. And by the way, the lightning bolt, if you click that, will get rid of any files that you're not currently using anymore, which is pretty cool. But if you click on this, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna find episode 50. Now this is all the files that we need to finish out episode 50. So let me go ahead and hit Control on my keyboard. I'm gonna bring in this, and we're gonna bring in the Audacity edit with effects. Remember we did that the other day. Gonna bring that in, and I'm gonna wait on render. We're not gonna bring that in quite yet. Let's go ahead and open those guys up. You're gonna see right now they're in our source file panel. All right, so let's go ahead and bring in our game video and our game audio. Let me go ahead and show you this too right quick. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but right here it says start video, start commentary. And you can basically create these little orange, I call them separators, by just hitting M. Again, do this for you right quick. For a marker, you can hit M, and then if you want to delete them, you can just hit delete. And I do this because when you're looking at the graphics, like if we scrub in really close here, and you're looking up here in this preview window. Let me go ahead and get this a little bit bigger for you guys. You can see that this little line comes down, it's all animated, and then it's gonna go ahead and transition over. See how it's forming? And I want the video to be behind it, right? See how the video is behind it right now? But if I move this over, then it's black. Does that make sense? So I put this marker there to know, hey, I want to be able to put this game video here every single time and it automatically be in the right spot. So I never have to come in here and meticulously try to find the point where my background needs to shine through. You see what I'm saying? And that just makes it easy when you're doing, you know, this particular show every single day. And then if we scroll back up on our timeline, let's move this up again. You can see I have another one for start commentary, and that's because you guys know I do like a little intro, and then you know the music plays a little bit, and then it starts to fade out, and I want my commentary to come in at a certain point. So when I bring in my commentary here and I put it on this line, then that's where the commentary would start. Does that make sense? So because I have those markers in play, I just butt my footage up against those particular markers, and I'm good to go. So once I've brought in my video and my commentary, the first thing I do, even before I sync everything up, the first thing I do is I right click my game video, come down here to properties, and I click on disable resample. Now let me go ahead and explain this right quick. So resampling is something that happens by default inside of Sony Vegas. I don't know if it happens with other editing software or not, but in Sony Vegas, it automatically applies that resample feature. And when you're dealing with the capture card, and I'm not sure how this works with other source footage, like if you're doing it from a digital camera or an iPhone or something like that, but I know with capture cards, it automatically does that resample feature by default. And what that does is it creates like a ghosting effect in your videos. If you go back and you look at some of my earlier videos, you will see it because I was unaware that this feature existed. But the reason why you want to do it is because you want to get rid of that ghosting effect, okay? It's like 80% of the way to making your videos look good. A lot of people focus on color correction and other post-production work, and that's fine because I do that too. But if you don't disable the resample, your color corrections and all the other post-production work that you put into your videos is kind of a moot point. Okay, it nils itself out because your video may look very colorful, right? But it's still going to have that ghosting effect that's happening to it, which degrades it even farther, right? It's almost a waste of time to do all that other post-production work if you haven't disabled the resample. So that is the first thing that I do when I'm looking at working with my videos. Let's go ahead and hit OK, make sure that is applied. The next thing I have to do is make sure that my video is centered not on the entire screen. Let me go ahead and enlarge this for you guys. Obviously we have the entire screen, right? And then we have my video window, which is only so big. So I have to minimize the actual source file so that it fits inside of my window and it's not actually full screen. Now the way that I do this, let me go ahead and minimize this again, is basically you just come to your file and there's a little button right here, a little crop button. You click on that and you can see that it's at default, which means it's the size of the screen, it's full size. But if I come down here to where it says I've got Game Capture HD, I have credits, I have Sony Personal Play, then I have Daily Dose 2015. Now if I click that, you can see that it jumped. And now that is full screen, quote unquote. You see what I'm saying? Edge to edge, it's inside of my video window. But how did I do it? Well, let's take a look at that. So if we come back up here to default, now it's full size again. Let me go ahead and take out the transparency to this so you can actually see it. So it's full size, and then obviously if we go to daily dose, it's inside of my preview window, just so you can see how that works. We'll go back to default, and what you can do is you can grab these little points at the edge of your video here, and you can move them around. You see what I'm saying? So all I do is I move that, you know, however big or small I want it to fit inside of my preview window. And because this is a daily show, right, because the graphics are never going to change, they're always going to be sized exactly the same. It's the same way with my personal plays and all the other videos that I do. Even though the video size, right, the video window is different for all of the playlists that I have, for that particular playlist, they are the same. You see what I'm saying? So once I size it out one time, like I did here with Daily Dose 2015, once I size it out and I get it exactly the way that I want it, then all I have to do is name it Daily Dose 15 and then click on the little disc and it saves it. So like I have one, let me go ahead and decrease this again so you guys can see. That's my daily dose, and you'll see the sizes of these change, right? That's the vault, a little bit smaller. You see what I'm saying? Sony personal play. See how they all change. This is for the credits. You guys know when I do the credits at the end of these videos, I have like the credits rolling over here and it's kind of split screen. That's where that goes. And then I have, you know, just my regular game capture HD footage. So you can see that I have all these templates built in already. They're different sizes, but because they're templates, I can access them at any time and make sure that everything looks exactly the same, and it doesn't take me a long time to do it. All right, so let's go ahead and X out of this. Now that that's all sized in, we'll go ahead and bring this transparency up a bit. And we're gonna go ahead and sync everything up. Now, two things happen when I do commentaries for the Daily Dose, right? One is their post-commentary work, meaning, you know, maybe I'm talking about a new game that's coming out. There's just trailer, gameplay footage in the background, pretty generic. And I don't really need my commentary to sync up with anything that's going on, you know, visually. At that point, it doesn't matter about syncing up the game video with the commentary. You just put it up there and go. But obviously, if I want my commentary to match up with something that I'm talking about on screen, and it's kind of like a live commentary, if you will, like a personal play, or maybe I'm doing a live demo of a game for you guys, then obviously the commentary has to match. So before I actually start recording, right, you guys know we do our 5 seconds of silence when we do our commentary in Audacity. You know, the Elgato's running, everything's capturing, right? I have to be able to sync that up. So what I will do is I will count down from 3. I will say 3, 2, 1, and then I will do something on my screen, right, via my capture device. Like I might move from, you know, this particular part of my dashboard back to the Bloodborne icon, and I will say that. I will say, okay, I'm moving from, you know, TV and video to Bloodborne icon in 3, 2, 1, and then I'll say go, and then I'll move, right? I'll do that shift on screen. Then I'll do it a second time, just for clarity. I'll say, okay, moving back from Bloodborne to TV and video right now, or 3, 2, 1 now. You see what I'm saying? And when I do that, it lets me know that my commentary is synced up to what's actually happening on the screen. So once I have that audio and visual cue in place, all I have to do is make sure that it matches up inside of my timeline, right? So let's just say, for instance, that, and I know what these are claps, me clapping, but let's just say that was me saying 3, 2, 1, okay? And I wanted my video to start. So all I'd have to do is just move that over. Okay, move that like this, and then boom. See what I'm saying? So that'd be me going 3, 2, 1, and then the video would start. Or the video would be me shifting from one of these to the other. You see what I'm saying? So as long as you have something that's in your commentary that cues to something that's in your gameplay footage, and like I said, I usually do it twice just to make sure, then the rest of your timeline is intact, okay? Everything else will fall right into play. And like I said, because this is more of an example, I didn't really need the commentary to match up with the gameplay footage. If you guys want more clarity on that, maybe I can do another video down the road for that if that's something that you guys are wondering about. But for right now, let's just go ahead and talk more about the editing process and how we split these clips up to make the final version of the Daily Dose. So if you guys remember when we were working in Audacity, we talked about clapping, okay? The power of the 3 claps. You know, so much power in that, right? So you can see right here, this is the commentary that I laid down for, I think this was for the After Effects version of this mini series. It may have been for the Audacity, but you can see it was an hour and I don't know, like 10 minutes long, give or take. Maybe it was even, yeah, hour and 13 minutes long. Now, if you go back and you watch that video, you know that it's not an hour and 13 minutes long, and that's because I cut out a lot of this. And this gets us back to my point about the 3 claps. So let's go ahead and zoom in right here. And you can see right here, 3 claps, right? So all I have to do when I'm editing, and I do this before I even listen back to my own commentary, is because I know that there's 3 claps here, I know that anything before those 3 claps is good material. Whatever I said, I liked it. You know what I mean? That's why I clapped 3 times. So all I have to do is just zoom in here, go a little bit past my last audio waveform, and then I just hit S, you know, S is in Sam, for split. Hit S on my keyboard, which splits my clip, and then I simply go to the next 3 claps. You can see right here that the next 3 claps are way over here, which means all of this right here, I didn't like it. For whatever reason, I didn't like the way it came out, or I didn't like my delivery, or I didn't like what I said. So we basically will split again. Then we go right before the gap. I always, anytime I say something and I'm not happy with it, I'll wait maybe 5 to 7 seconds and then I'll start again, okay? And that lets me know that, hey, there's a gap there. When I split my clip again, I need to split before the gap. So you can see right here, boom. I'm just gonna split right there. And then everything in the middle gets deleted by just hitting the, you know, your delete key. And then I know that this is good and this is good. And I just simply slide it over and edge it out or butt it up to the clip and we're good to go. And I just do that all the way down my timeline. So you can see how fast you can go through, you know, like right here, boom, here's a split. Split that up. I'm just looking for the gap. Actually, all that is one long continuous sentence. So that was a pretty good run right there. We're going to delete that. Boom, we're going to slide this over, butt it up. So you can see how fast you can go through. I mean, like I said, this is an hour and 13 minute long clip. You can see how fast you can just go through and clean it up. Now, you're not quite done yet though, because after you've made all your, and I'm not going to really worry about this, guys, because this is just a tutorial, but after you've made all your edits, right, you want to go back. You don't want to listen to your entire commentary again unless you just want to, right? But you gotta imagine it, right? If it took you an hour and 13 minutes, or me, I should say, if it took me an hour and 13 minutes to lay down commentary, and then I trimmed that down to a 30-minute video, well, I've already spent an hour and 13 minutes because that was the original commentary. Then I had to, you know, split up all my clip, do the little editing that might have took maybe 15, 20 minutes. Then if it's down to a 30-minute final edit and I listen to the entire thing again, that's another 30 minutes. That's an hour and 13 minutes plus 30 plus about 20. That's a long time just to spend in audio. And there are days where I will listen back to it and all that kind of stuff. But really, because you did your 3 claps, because you know that whatever you said here is good stuff, then all you have to do is listen to your transitions. You just want to make sure that your transitions sound well, right? Because you know that everything else sounds good. So what I'll do is I'll just click, you know, somewhere in here, I'll hit play, I'll listen to it and make sure that it sounds like a nice sentence, or that I don't hear myself take a breath in between or something like that. Make sure that it flows really well. Now, sometimes you may have to take the clip and kind of slide it over a bit so that you don't hear that weird gap that you hear when you know they didn't make a complete sentence, and you've probably heard that in commentaries before. So there's a little bit of cleaning up that you may have to do, but only in the cuts, only where you split the clip, not the entire clip, if that makes sense. And that saves me a ton of time when I'm doing these final edits for you guys. But let's just say that everything is good. Let's say, hey, this is my daily dose for today. It's, you know, roughly 2 minutes long. Obviously, I don't need all of this gameplay footage, so I would just trim this down to be 2 minutes. And now let's talk a little bit more about the graphics here. Now, if you go back and you watch the After Effects video in this mini series again, you know that we did a final render of the graphics, and it was actually called render. Okay, you can see that it's right here, render. Now, if I click on render and I hit delete, and then I hit yes to all, you can see that my graphics go away. Okay, my credits stay because that's a different render, but this entire thing goes away. Now I'm going to hit Control Z to bring it all back, but you can see that it's one file. Now what I want to do with my new render is simply replace the existing file, because the template file that I have right here has all my edits already. It has everything exactly the way that I want it. And if I replace it with the render file, it keeps all the edits. So if I just replace it, everything automatically falls in line. Now the way that I do that is I can click on any one of these clips. It doesn't really matter which one. I right click and I go to select in project media list. And then where it says render, I hit right click and I hit replace. And then obviously we're in episode 50. This is my render file, and I'm gonna come down here and hit open. So automatically you can see that update, right? The date moved. If we come over here, you can see that now we're in Sony Vegas 13, episode 5, daily dose 50. You see what I'm saying? So everything updated, but one thing happened, and that is the infamous black screen. Now this happens when I replace footage every day, okay? This black screen shows up. You guys remember we talked about this in the After Effects video, that it looks like it's a black screen, but it's really transparent. But because you're working in Sony Vegas, and it may be different for all editing software programs out there, but you have to find a way to bring that transparency through. Now the way that you do it for Sony Vegas is you just simply right click the file, you go to properties, you go to media, and then you want to come down here to straight unmatted for the alpha channel. And when you do that, bam, it brings that transparency back through. And I'll say this right quick, if you're looking to do overlays like I do, whether it's still image overlays or video type overlays like I do, you have to make sure that whatever editing software you plan on using has this feature. Not all of them do. I used to work with an editing software that did not have the ability to bring transparency in. Okay, it was more of a low end type editing software. So you're going to get what you pay for. Just make sure that if you're looking to do overlays, before you spend the time making an overlay, right, make sure that you have the editing software to be able to bring that transparency through. And now, I mean, we're good to go. Like everything is good except for the outro. So what I'll do is I'll come over here and I will split. This is just excess that I don't need, and I'll delete that. Okay. And then let me go ahead and bring this timeline up a bit so you can see this. My outro, okay, and I'm gonna show you this right quick. My outro is all fitted together so that it all moves. You guys know at the end of all my videos, you know, about maybe the last 10 or 15 seconds of me talking, my intro music kicks back in. You see what I'm saying? And that's all preset, okay? I really like that when I'm listening to other people's videos. I really like that feature because it does kind of bring that closure to the video, especially if you have other background music playing at the same time. So I really like that. So that's the reason why I've designed it this way. Now getting all of these clips to group together is actually quite simple. You can see right now that they're all together. If I click on one and I hit the U key, it will unclip whatever I'm currently on. So now I can only move this clip. See what I mean? Everything else still grouped together. So how do I get it back? What you do is, and this can work with anything, right? If you, let me scroll up a bit. So if I come up here and I hit Control, and then I start clicking on all of the clips that I want to group together, get them all highlighted, then all I have to do is hit G on my keyboard for group, and it groups them all back together again. And now I can move them all together again. So this is a great way to group clips together that you normally wouldn't want to spend the time to sit there and meticulously do in every single edit, if that makes sense. Now all I have to do is just slide this over. Let's go ahead and move this background audio over a bit. We're going to slide this all the way over until it butts up against the last part of my gameplay footage and my graphics. And then we're just going to drag our background audio into, you can see right here, I have a little bit of dead space right here. So we just basically bring that into, let's see if I can get this right quick. Just bring this into this a little bit so it kind of crossfades and has a nice little transition. Then it goes straight into my outro music. And now the last thing I want to do is get my credits set up. So you can see over here, we have our credits right here. I want to make sure that there's some gameplay footage behind that. So I'll just simply go in here, anywhere in my timeline, hit S, and then I'll hit Control C, clip away, hit Control V to duplicate, and then I'll just put this behind, right, butted up against both the in point and the out point of that particular clip. You can see that it's got the black bars, and that's because it's by default. Remember, we go into our crop tool, and I will click credits right there. Now it looks a little bit weird now because it's a dashboard, but obviously if it was gameplay footage, it would be centered. So like if I was playing Assassin's Creed and I was running down the street, you know, the character would be somewhere in the middle of this screen. You see what I'm saying? And then you got your thanks for watching and that sort of stuff. Now we got a couple more things that I want to show you guys here before we do the final render. We talked about this earlier with the master bus, right? Making sure you've got volume control. So right now it's set to 0. Now if you guys remember when we did the Audacity tutorial, we applied some effects to our commentary, but I told you there's going to be one more effect that we apply to our commentary inside of Sony Vegas. It's going to make it sound really good, and we're going to talk about that right now. And if you remember, we also talked about clipping. You never want your audio to clip. Now in Sony Vegas, it has a built-in method of showing you clipping. So if we come right here and we just hit play, any part of our timeline, we're just watching this meter and we're watching this meter. Now you see right here, this little red square or rectangle showed up, right? That means that my commentary track right now is clipping. None of my other tracks are clipping, but that one is. And that is the reason why we're clipping on our master bus as well. I'm gonna back this up a little bit just so we have some time to talk here. Now what you can do is you can actually click on these. I'm gonna wait for it to clip again. You can click on it and it'll go away, but once you clip again, it shows back up, okay? I cannot stress this enough. If you are not listening to your commentary back, like I said, I'm not even listening right now audibly to what's happening on screen. I can just visually see it. But if you're not going through your timeline, making sure that you're not clipping, you're missing out. If you're clipping at any point right before you do your final edit, go back in and make sure you're looking at this stuff, because it will affect the audio quality, especially if someone's got a headset on or something like that, or you're doing a let's play and you're screaming or whatever. It kills their ears, okay? So you gotta make sure that you're not clipping. Now you're probably saying, well, Xonevant, you know, are you gonna put this track up? Are you gonna render this video out with clipping? I'm gonna show you what I do, okay? So let's get rid of these. Remember I told you we have one more effect to apply to our commentary. So we're gonna go right here to our track effects, and it's called Graphic EQ. You can find it in here. It should just be a preset, like a preset inside of Sony Vegas for you. This is not something that I downloaded, just Graphic EQ. You can hit add and then hit OK, and it brings it in. Now I already have mine set up, and you're more than welcome to, I don't know if I can make this any bigger, I can't. You're more than welcome to kind of freeze the frame here if you want to and kind of copy what I have. Remember, everybody's voice is different, especially if you're a female. This is more designed for a male voice, but it may work for you, right? Depending on what's going on with your commentary. But there's a lot of presets you can try too, but I have one that's called XCOM and XCOM Lite. Now you're probably saying, well, why do you have two, right? Well, a lot of times when you do commentary, you will talk for a long time. Like when I did my Bloodborne Let's Play, you know, it's roughly, I think it was 22 episodes, 30 minutes a piece. That's a long time to be talking, and I would film in 3-hour chunks. So my voice would get scratchy the longer that I talked. And so if I feel like my voice is scratchy, I will go to XCOM, which is Xonevant's commentary. At the beginning of my sessions, right, when my voice is feeling pretty good and strong, then I just go to XCOM Lite. It just takes care of both my vocal ranges depending on how I feel. So for this particular commentary, I'm just going to go with XCOM Lite, and you can see that everything is already preset. We're going to click away, and then now we're going to go back and we're going to listen to the same. We're not really listening to it, but we're going to watch it, and I'm going to show you that there's absolutely no clipping now. So we're going to hit play, and you can see that I'm not clipping here, and I'm not clipping here. Okay, and my master bus, I'm again pause this right quick. My master bus was up at about between like a 6 and a 9. And that's about where I like my commentaries to be, or my videos to be, between a 6 and a 9. Anything higher than a 6, you may experience some clipping, or it may be too loud for your audience to actually be able to stand. So like I said, if you're making YouTube videos, or any project for that matter, you have to make sure that your audio is not clipping, especially if you don't do face cams. Like I don't do face cams, so the audio is the only thing you guys hear. And if it's not good, or if it's not where I think it should be, then it might turn you off from watching the video. You see what I'm saying? So you just got to keep all that stuff in mind. All right, once all that is said and done, guys, we're finally ready to render this booger out. So we're going to come up here to File, and we're going to do Render As. You can see that I have one preset only, and that is YouTube HD 1080. Now for me, every single day, all I have to do is just click on YouTube 1080 and hit render, and I'm good to go. But if you've never worked with a program like this before, let me give you an idea of how I got to this particular template. So if I click off of Show Favorites Only, I get a ton of different options that I can use to render out my files. And I'm gonna go ahead and tell you this right now, no matter how many YouTube videos you watch, no matter how many forums you go to, the only thing that matters is what you think about your quality, and everybody's gonna tell you something completely different. I've watched so many videos on this. Nobody's saying the same thing. Everybody has different ways of rendering it. The only way that you can be sure that you're putting out the best quality content that you can put out is to rewatch your own videos and ask your subs. Ask your viewers, hey, how does this look? Ask family, friends, things like that. If everybody's saying that, your videos looks good, 9 times out of 10, they look good, okay? Feedback is important at this stage in the game, right? Because you're gonna be biased to what you produce. Everything you put out is gonna look good, you know what I'm saying? Everything you put out is gonna sound good, but it's your audience that matters. But for the sake of argument, I will go through and show you the template that I have. So I'm gonna click on this and hit Customize Template. And you would do this basically the same way that you did your preferences. You would just find something in here that's 1080 or 720, select it. I will show you this. I pick this particular option, the Sony AVC MVC MP4 M2TS AVC. That is the one that I pick, and then it gives me this sub drop down menu. And I want to say that at the bottom was actually something that said Internet 720 or Internet 1080 or something like that. Yeah, Internet 720. I don't know if that's something I made or something that was up there, but I want to say that there was a template, a generic template that said something like that. That's the one that I picked, and then I just hit Customize. And then I'll just run you guys through some of my settings right quick. So the video format is going to be AVC, high definition, because I'm doing 1080, obviously 1920 by 1080. You could pick 720 if that's something that you wanted. Profile is high, coding is CABAC, frame rate is basically 60 frames a second, non-progressive scan, again, one point pixel aspect ratio. And then now we get into the bit rate. And like I said, this is where you're going to get difference of opinions no matter what video you watch, no matter what forums you're going to. Some people are going to say, anywhere between 8 and 12 million is good, and some people are going to say variable bit rate. Some people are going to say constant bit rate. You're never going to find a clear-cut answer, guys. You just have to look at your PC, do some test renders, figure out what renders fastest for you and what gives you the best quality. I'm telling you, that is your baseline. That is where you should start. And then once you get it down, you have a template, just keep rendering them out that way and you're good to go. For me, I like to do this, like I said, this particular profile, and I like to take it all the way up to 26 million. And that's because that is the closest number to my reference file. When you're capturing with the Elgato HD, it's going to tell you the bit rate that you're capturing at, right? Live, it'll tell you. And for me, my capture is about, I think it's like 24 million or something like that. So I just want to get my bit rate up a bit higher than that. And that way when I upload to YouTube, after they compress it and do all their crazy stuff with it, it doesn't jack my file up too much. You know what I mean? It gives me the most quality out of that file that I can possibly get. The higher the bit rate, the better. But the higher the bit rate, the longer the render times, especially if you're doing 1080p videos. So you just have to, like I said, keep all that stuff in mind when you're going through and doing your test renders. Number of slices is 1. Let's talk about the encode mode. Now, if you look at this drop-down menu, I have automatic recommended, I have render using CPU only, render using GPU if available, etc., etc. Now, I have a GPU, but for whatever reason, and this is, I don't know if it's because this is a new software package for me. I used to work off a different, I think I worked off Sony Vegas 11. I cannot get Sony to recognize my GPU. So when I go back and I do my next upgrade, my next computer upgrade, I'm gonna check into all that with my computer guy, my friend, and see if I can get it to work, because I know that if I can render using my GPU, supposedly it is a ton quicker. But for now, I just cannot get it to recognize it. So I will stick with automatic recommended. I've tried render using CPU only, but when I do my batch renders at night, it always fails. Like the software just shuts down, and I don't know what causes it, but when I do CPU only, that's what happens. When I do automatic recommended, I never get any issues. It never fails to render and that sort of thing. So like I said, I just leave mine automatic recommended. When I come to audio, it's always AAC. Sample rate, remember, keep that the same. 48,000. Bit rate is 512. Stereo is my coding mode. And then when you come over here to system, you can see right here, check GPU. Mine says no GPU available, but obviously there is one available. I just don't know. I'm unfamiliar with how to get it to recognize it. So once I get that, maybe I can do an update video for you guys and let you know if the render times are any quicker. But if it says that you have a GPU, you might want to try that and then try automatic recommended, see which one is faster for you, right? And I would recommend just getting like a little 2-minute clip, rendering it, keeping up with the time, render it again. Like I said, when I was going through building all my templates, I did this for like a day. Like I did a whole day worth of Audacity, right? I did Audacity all day long, test render after test render after test render. And then I did a Sony Vegas day where I just test rendered a ton of different stuff. And this is the one that gives me the best quality for the time, right? So just make sure that you've done that. And then for your project, just make sure that it's best. And then just use project settings for the 3D mode, which is basically going to be nothing. And then color space is by default, and then hit OK. And you can see that as soon as I done that, it gave me like a YouTube 1080 with the asterisk. That just means that I basically was working off the same template that I had before. When I click back on this, I just want to stay with what I had, obviously. But you just want to put up there, maybe you want a 720 and a 1080 so you can make as many templates as you want. But once you're ready to render, you just want to click that and hit render. Now, for the sake of argument, I'm going to go ahead and select my timeline. And all you got to do to select your timeline is just left click your mouse and drag this little blue transparent window to the beginning and end of your edit, which that is mine. Make sure you're at the end of your edit. Sometimes you will accidentally pick somewhere in here and you'll have to re-render the whole thing, which I have done on numerous occasions, and that is no fun. We'll go ahead and do that. And then we're gonna come here to File, Render. And I'm gonna go ahead and keep track of how long this render is. This is about I don't know, almost 2 minutes, 20 seconds maybe, clip. We're gonna go ahead and hit render. And this is 1080, we're gonna see how long it takes. It's 4:52 right now. I'm gonna click render and I'll be right back. All right guys, I'm back, and it looks like it took longer than what it actually did. I actually got caught up watching one of 2Pro4U videos. He was playing some Call of Duty and I lost track of time. But it only took about 5 minutes, actually a little over 5 minutes to do this file. So roughly double the time. So if I'm doing a personal play, and it's 30 minutes long, it's gonna take, 50 minutes to an hour to render out, which is actually not that bad because like I said before, I'm not using the full power of my GPU to do my renders. So I think once I get that stuff into play and do all my computer upgrades, I'm probably gonna be able to get this thing down to a 1-to-1, meaning if it's a 30-minute video, should take 30 minutes or less. And that's with all the graphics and going 1080p, 60 frames a second. All right, guys, that pretty much wraps it up. On the next show, we're going to be talking about Handbrake, and then we're going to be moving over to YouTube. I'm going to be showing you guys how to do your tags and your descriptions correctly, not some of these shady ways that you guys are seeing people do on YouTube. I'm going to show you how to do that, take care of all that business, and then this mini series will be wrapping itself up. Hopefully you guys are enjoying. I'll see you right back here on the next show. You guys be good.